So I found another way to be a coward, and it involves pre-recording part of this event. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the making of this book. Before it was a novel, I was writing a short story about a struggling writer who was also struggling in his marriage. At the same time, I also had a handful of essays about my childhood and about my parents, about growing up in the suburbs of Atlanta, and also about my family in Israel. Just for the hell of it, I went to one of those writing conferences where everyone was obsessively pitching things to agents. And I signed up to pitch to an agent just because everyone else was. But in a typical Yuvi fashion, I had no pitch. Or that wasn't true. What I had was an anti-pitch pitch. It went something like this. I have no pitch for you. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I have a bunch of these fucked up short stories, and I'm curious what you think about what publishing is like these days. Anyway, one young agent, not my current agent, she liked my anti-pitch enough and told me to send her my stories. Within a week, she got back to me, and she loved the stories, but said that she'd only represent this collection if it came along with the promise of a novel. Not only that, but she wanted to see the beginning of this promised novel to see if it was marketable. So I kind of panicked. I took my story of the failed writer in the failed marriage, and I started making it longer. I also noticed that there were echoes of this story in my essays, and echoes of my essays in the story. As it turns out, I'm no good at lying, and I'm also no good at telling the truth, so everything I write seems to be lost between those worlds. And so I just blended these two things together and sent the thing to an agent, called it a novel. Of course, she didn't go for it. She said it wasn't a proper novel. And that was the birth of the agent character within my novel. From then on, every criticism I received from her or another agent went straight into that agent's mouth. This really opened up a lot more possibilities for me in this book. It became the book where I was allowed to do all the things that I wasn't allowed to do. More than just with this one agent character, I could break all these rules that I thought you weren't supposed to do. I wrote about writing. I wrote about agents talking about writing. I made outdated references to Woody Allen. I had my character be too sensitive, and I had him fantasize about getting spanked without overly dwelling on this fetish. I wrote stories in the book that my character analyzes within the same book. I reveal in the book the true relationship of people in my own life, in real life, and wrote those details into the book. I referenced the fact that I was really published in a publication online called The Poop Report, and I even tell you in the book how to find it online. But the best thing of all this was it just freed me up to write the emotional truth I was feeling about this character in the situation without being encumbered by the rules of writing a novel and what is marketable. This all evolved over time. The final draft is a lot less about the writer and more about this human being trying to deal with his own life and his own shame and what it means to have a relationship or have a family. It wasn't easy to keep this book on the tracks. Breaking the rules is great, but it's kind of pointless if what you end up with is totally incomprehensible, and so I took a lot of care to keep this thing in good shape. There's a scene in the book where the character puts every page of his manuscript on clotheslines across the living room and looks at this big mess of his novel to try to figure out what he's done. Well, I did that in real life. As untamed as this novel sounds, it took a ton of work to tame it to the right point. In one way, I totally cheated with making this book, but in another way, it was a colossal amount of work to just cheat in the right way. Anyway, sorry for yammering. I hope you don't hate it.